Clock says 5. Is the clock above me? No. So with that saying 5, we'll go ahead and call the meeting to order this evening. The first item of business is the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Not seeing any lights yet. Be good.
Yep, you're good.
Okay. All right. All right, the second item of business this evening is the approval of the minutes from the January 17th, 2023 meeting.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of the January 17th, 2023 meeting.
I'll second that motion.
DeGrand,
Aye.
Kalman,
Aye.
Mauer, aye, Upshaw.
Aye.
All right. Third item on the agenda this evening is the consideration and a vote to recommend approval of a conditional use permit for 508 West Shawnee. Daniel, and I'm gonna butcher the name, Mukeku applicant.
Okay. Daniel is not here tonight, so I guess we'll just go through the packet and you guys can do the public hearing portion of it.
Do we have a public hearing on it? So we need to open the public hearing.
I've had expressed interest in kind of going over what guidelines you all will look at before public comment, so it can direct some of their public comment.
Okay, that would be fine. I want to do it that way.
So I'll just skip to page 2, under brief and findings. The planning commission must ensure that the following standards shall be met as part of section 21-220 from the Paola Land Development Ordinance. The proposed use shall be consistent with the comprehensive plan's purpose, goals, objectives, and policies, including standards for building and structural intensities and densities and intensities of use. So this use of a residential structure is consistent with the comprehensive plan. The proposed use shall be compatible with the character of the land in the immediate vicinity. The property immediately to the north is a single-family attached residence, very similar to what the applicant is looking to build. And all other adjoining properties are single-family residential dwellings, making the proposed single-family attached compatible with immediate vicinity. The proposed use's design shall minimize adverse effects, including visual impact of the proposed use of adjacent lands. The exterior of the structure is residential in appearance, and so there will be no adverse effects on residential land. And the proposed use shall minimize adverse impacts on the environment, traffic and congestion, infrastructure and or governmental services. Off-street parking requirements appear to be met, and the construction of a single-family attached residence will not have adverse impacts on the environment, traffic and congestion, infrastructure or governmental services. So those are kind of the guidelines we look at when we go over this.
Okay. Now, I will take a motion to open the public hearing.
I'll make a motion to open the public hearing for the conditional use permit for 508 West Shawnee.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Got a motion and a second. You want to call?
Yes, sorry. DeGrand,
Aye.
Kalman,
Aye.
Upshaw,
Aye.
Mauer.
Public hearing is now open.
Do you?
All right, you want to have the public, we have anybody from the public that wants to address this? When you step up, please state your name and your address.
My name is Michael O'Rourke, and I live at 206 South Mulberry Street, which is immediately east of the property. My backyard shares a property line with this piece of property. And I just guess I don't understand what the determination of whether or not it's permitted. We don't know what the structure they're even gonna put on it's gonna look like. I mean, is there even architectural drawings being submitted to know what we're saying, yes, we object to, or no, we don't object to? Are they gonna put a sidewalk in the street? That property right now has no sidewalk, and the drainage is just going off street parking. I mean, I don't know how to problem with that. We should have that sense with it. I just don't know how the construction of what they're gonna put on is gonna come into play with my property line. I've lived where we've lived, me and the wife, for 47 years. We put the fence in, and when we put the fence in, we had agreements with the neighbors on all three sides. In fact, I actually have signed statements, so I held the property 3 inches inside my property line, so there'd be no question about the fence. Except right on the property line is this humongous tree. I mean, the property line goes right to the middle of it. And at that time, the person that owned the property behind us said they had no problem with that. We just butted the fence up to the tree. As the trees continued to grow, we've had to modify the fence to get it a little bit farther away from it. And there's been times that limbs have fell in places. People that's always owned the property behind me have always allowed me access to that property to maintain the fence, even though it's 100% on my property line. I mean, we held it inside the property line, but they've always allowed me access to it to maintain the fence. You know, whenever I had to replace a board or anything, or maybe fall off the trees and things. And I don't know what I'm agreeing or not agreeing to as far as what may come in the future with that kind of a handshake, old-fashioned neighborhood agreement. That at least I could have access to the property to maintain my fence. I mean, I thought it was my legal responsibility to maintain my fence. And when we put a fence in, both of the property owners practically said, no, put it right down the property line. You don't need to hold back at all, but we did, we held back by, because it made common sense to me to keep it all on my property, just in case something would happen. And I don't know whether to say I object to it or not, because I don't know what I'm saying, Jerry. I have no idea what to put in there. I don't have any idea what it's gonna look like, whether they're gonna have to kill this tree. Because it's so close to, right now, their property comes within. You can touch their property from my property. I'm sure. When it was put in that there was no ordinances required setback. Yes. There's like 7 feet right now between the two properties. I know that's. Yeah. And I don't know if I'm gonna be required to take my fence down. I mean, I have no idea what the future plans are. How can I possibly know whether I would object to what they're doing?
Jesse, can you address some of the setback for us so that give him some idea?
Has he seen the plot plan?
Yes, I just
I know,
tonight when you came.
Oh,
in and asked.
just glanced at it over his shoulders.
Okay.
So Mr. O'Rourke has not been into the office to speak with me. He
I was-
tried to come in today and.
I was
we
sick
missed
all
each
last
other.
week. I couldn't get up there.
So, there are required setbacks for any structure built in the city of Paola. The structure that is, proposed to be built does meet required setbacks. It appears on your property side, there's a setback of 10 foot, 9 inches, which, does meet what's required for this type of structure. The opposite side of the property, there's an 11-foot setback on the west side. So any sort of setback issues have been satisfied.
So the structure will meet the required setback. And it will be, and so, and where you say 7 feet now, it'll actually be further away than
Farther
that.
away.
Yes, yeah. It'll be almost 11 feet, 10, 9. 10 foot 9.
And that's just on that very narrow portion. As you come forward to the front of the house,
Oh, yeah.
there's even an extra 9 feet, 8 inches. So it widens as it comes towards the front, the south side of that property.
Yeah, and it comes, yeah, 'cause my property, for some strange reason, years ago, when the city vacated the alley. The alley used to go alongside of my property and turn and go south, actually turned in the middle of it. And when they vacated the property, this was told to me when we bought our property, that the people that owned the property touching the old alley had the right, had the offer whether or not they wanted to buy their share. The person that owned mine did, but it was the only one. The neighbor to the south of me did not buy their half of the alley. The people behind me did not. My property actually goes deeper than anyone else on the block and goes wider than anyone else on the block. Because when Mr. Moore, who owned my property time, he said, yeah, I don't have a problem with that. So that's how my fence became so much closer to his house than it should have been. It really does. If you look up from overhead, it looks kind of strange the way my property is shaped. But
So does that help address your issue on as far as?
does anybody know what about the tree? I mean, does that have any play on anything?
No, and I couldn't tell you on that. I mean, I don't. It'll depend probably on where that tree's located on the property and the footprint of the house that they're gonna construct. Is that,
When they
but
break ground and start putting in the foundation, will there be permits applied for and plans laid out to?
Oh, yeah.
Then be,
oh, yeah.
that then can
Yeah.
be looked at to see whether I can say, whoa, hold it.
Yeah, I don't know that you'll be able to say that, but there'll be plans submitted. It has to go through a regular process. This is just to approve the actual building of an attached house or attached single-family residence in the NCR1 district,
This is
What
NCR
is
two.
a duplex?
NCR2. Yeah,
It's not gonna
attached
get-
single-family is a duplex. For you and I, it's a duplex.
Yeah, it looks like just slab on grade,
Yeah.
so there won't be a foundation,
There's
it'll
no
just be a concrete
foundation?
slab, everything's above the ground.
To clarify that, Daniel. This is Daniel, this isn't Mr. McKeckey, this is the applicant.
I own the property right beside. Okay.
So-
East, I own, but we share that privacy there.
Okay.
This isn't, I'm to redirect, I'm sorry, this is not appropriate time or place to discuss that. But I was going to clarify for you, if it is, Daniel, this is just a slab, it's not a foundation with a full basement.
No, it is not.
Slab, okay,
Okay.
okay, thank you.
So is that it? So is that the end of your comments?
Well,
I mean, is there something you have not covered already in your comments, I guess?
At the end of this, I feel that Mr. McKeckey would be more than willing to have a conversation with you. He's very open to neighbor comment, so we can address that. Would that work for you?
well, I guess I can't understand how anyone can approve or disapprove without any kind of architectural drawing of what we're saying yes or no to.
Well, we're really not approving an architectural drawing. We're just approving a conditional use permit for a single-family attached house in that zoning district. Right now, it can be built in there, but it needs a conditional use permit. And that's what we're looking at, is whether we can issue a conditional use permit, whether the requirements meet the setbacks and everything to where we can issue that.
Okay,
And that's what,
okay,
that's what we're dealing with tonight.
But then they will have to submit all the plans and everything to Jessica's office if and when we approve this.
Yeah.
This is just allowing them to build a duplex on a single home lot.
but in future times will be other hearings on whether or not the plans are submitted or approved?
No.
No.
The plans will be submitted and they'll be measured against what is required for city building.
Okay,
So it's important to kind of look at it this way. If this was just a single family residence, we wouldn't be here discussing
Oh, I
this.
know,
We
I
would just
understand.
process a permit. So just because it happens to be the twin home on a property, that's, yeah.
all right, thank you.
Oh, you bet. Anyone else like to address us in the public comment? Okay, then
Guys have
have we had any written comments?
We have not had any interest from the public, and if you have, I guess, any further questions for the applicant, feel free to ask.
Let's close the public hearing. I'll take a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing. I'll second.
You got a second?
Legrand,
Aye.
Elman,
Aye.
Mauer, aye, Upshaw.
Aye.
Okay. Now, we can go ahead, now that it's closed, public hearing, we can go ahead and discuss it among ourselves now.
Okay.
So, does anybody have any questions for the applicant?
I do not.
I do not. I don't. Okay. With that, then I would entertain a motion to approve this conditional use permit.
I'll make a motion to approve the recommended approval of the conditional use permit at 508 West Shawnee.
In a second. I'll second it. Okay. We'll put it to a vote.
Legrand,
Aye.
Elman,
Aye.
Upshaw,
Aye.
Mauer, aye, sorry.
All right. Done.
Okay,
All right. Next item on the agenda this evening is the discussion on the LD Land Development Ordinance text addition in reference to tiny homes.
okay, so we are back to discussing, verbiage for the land development ordinance to regulate tiny homes, since the recent code adoption of the 2018 International Building Codes allows for tiny homes in it. So attachment A is all verbiage that we went over previous meeting, and then the attachment B, I put all the tables that we had previously looked at into one document and kind of pare that down a little bit. In the verbiage for single family residential tiny home clusters, I did note the change from last meeting. Tiny homes on wheels would not be permitted. The other one was the cluster development must retain under common ownership, including common open spaces, building and structures. The site plan to be submitted and approved by the Paola Planning Commission, and then accepted and approved by City Council. The tiny home development shall only be permitted with the minimum spacing of 1,000 feet between developments. And that kind of tripped some people up last time. Does that read okay? The verbiage on that? Okay. The minimum site area in any district is 4 acres. I did add on one of these tables, and I'll have to make the note on the language that some cities have maximum acreage. I know this is kind of tricky for us because we are inside city limits. But there are a couple properties. Arista comes to mind, that are very large properties. So I didn't know if you guys want to add in something to kind of cap it at 50. It seemed to be 15 acres was kind of the general cap, just to keep the developments to a controlled number.
And what was the minimum again? Was that?
The minimum is 4 acres. So even at 4 acres, there's probably a handful, unless someone is on the outskirts and would ask to be, thank you, annexed in. I struggle with that one. So 4 acres and then cap it at 15. If you want to cap it, that's up to you guys.
I could see us having a cap.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just have
Do you,
80 acres of tiny homes.
Right, just so there wouldn't be an issue with that in the future.
do you have any preference? I picked 15 because that seemed to be just looking across the board. And I also picked 15 because that is the maximum for the manufactured home park that's already in the LDO.
Okay.
So I didn't know if you want to kind of stay on similar guidelines as that.
That sounds fair.
So I will add that to it. All tiny home cluster developments must comply with lot setbacks in Article 4. And this would allow for flexible setbacks to be permitted from lot boundaries to enable functional site design during site plan review by planning commission. And then all tiny homes shall maintain a minimum separation of 10 feet from other tiny homes within the development. Each tiny home within a development shall meet the off-street parking requirements, which we sat at 1.5 spots per dwelling unit plus 1 guest per every 3 dwelling units. All tiny homes must be connected to all available public utilities. Composting toilets are not permitted. Tiny homes on wheels are not permitted. Off-street parking spaces for tiny homes must be an acceptable all-weather surface such as asphalt, concrete, chip seal, graded and compacted gravel, or other stabilized system. Tiny homes may be used as a guest house as defined by the LDO and allowed in table 3.110A general use. With that, the tiny homes used as a guest house shall be on a site with an owner occupied single family residence. Architectural design, roofing material, exterior materials and colors, roof pitch and style, type of windows and trim details of the unit shall be substantially the same as and visually compatible with the primary dwelling. Tiny homes used as a guest house may not be on wheels and shall be placed on a permanent foundation. No more than 1 tiny home per property. Landscaping requirements would all be subject to section 6.120 of the LDO. 1 landscaping plant unit per tiny home, 4 landscaping plant units per acre of open space. The number of plant units required may be altered by the planning commission during the site plan review. And the requirement of an opaque fence around the perimeter of the lot will be at the discretion of the zoning administrator during the site plan review. But I believe I went ahead and put in here, I think I took from the same manufactured home to go ahead and require the fencing around all perimeter sides.
Okay, and on that one on 11C, that should be plant units, right? Correct.
Yep.
That's plant units.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, we can take out 11D and just leave it as, yes, it's required on all sides. If you guys are good with that. Okay. 12. Each tiny home that is moved in or built on site must be inspected by the city of Paola building inspector to obtain a certificate of occupancy. Utility easements as required by a service provider and drainage easements as necessary to cover any drainage improvements shall be shown on the site plan with easement dimensions and recording information provided. Defining a tiny home. Tiny home means a detached and self-contained dwelling unit permanently constructed on a foundation, frame, or chassis and designed for use as a permanent living quarter. It is equipped for basic functional areas that support normal daily routines such as cooking, sleeping, and sanitation. Must only be 1 story, excluding lofts. Tiny home does not include a trailer, semi-trailer, camp trailer, recreational vehicle, or manufactured housing. Structural requirements are all taken from all requirements of the 2018 International Building Code Appendix Q shall be met. And it references that section for ceiling height, lofts, emergency escape and rescue openings. And then minimum square footage shall not account for the required cooking facilities, toilet faculty areas, or lofts, which are required in addition to the minimum clear floor area of 120 square feet for single occupant, 220 square feet for 2 occupants, and 320 square feet for 3 occupants. All that is taken from the IRC.
I had a question about item 10.
Sure.
Is that still referring to a cluster or is that referring to somebody just putting a tiny home in their backyard?
10 is referring to using a tiny home as a guest house in their backyard. So the thing to note about that is section 3.314, or the section 3.110A, the general use table. It already dictates if a guest house is permissible in which NCR zoning district. So we wouldn't have to change anything there. It would just be, instead of a guest house based on home main floor square footage, if they would just be allowed to build a small condensed guest house.
Okay.
So it's not opening up to allow more everywhere, it's just already in those specific zoning districts.
Well, I was just wondering, because if they call it a guest house, but it ends up being a rental property.
Sure. There are. I have seen, and I'd have to verify guest house, the definition of guest house in our LDO, because I think it specifies that all utilities have to run from the primary residence, and I think it kind of guides that to keep it under control from being a rental property.
Okay.
Can double check that and just for you, but
And then I have one question about the clusters.
Mhm.
Upon you looking into existing ones, do any of them have or require any type of like storm shelter?
yes, they do. And once you reach a certain number of them, it is required.
Okay,
So could add that in,
because
but
if somebody packs in 50
yes.
and then a storm
Yeah,
rolls through,
That's a good
it's
question.
mass chaos,
Um,
traffic and everything trying to get out of there.
Where was that? Once they reach so many, they have to have a community space very similar to the newest senior living facility on North Hospital. They have their common area, and inside that is a safe room. So
Okay.
it would be the same as that.
Okay.
Do you guys feel confident in April? Coming back with a public hearing, adding in the storm shelter requirement, the maximum acreage. Changing the fencing to make it required. Do you feel comfortable having a public hearing for that?
Yeah.
Oh, so,
We don't. We can schedule that for April.
All right. Community Development Department report.
When I sent this out, we were 45 permits, but since then, we're now 51. So next meeting, we will have 2 public hearings, and I know it's near spring break, so if your schedule is crazy between now and then, the sooner I can know, the better, since we do have 2 public hearings. One is a variance request for the maximum allowed square footage of an accessory structure, and one is a rezoning request. The property is currently in an NCR1 zoning district looking to rezone to allow multifamily. So they are going to aim for thoroughfare access, and we will present that and see how that goes. And then at the last city council meeting, they approved campground rate increases. And they passed a resolution in support of Roush Pullman. They're seeking Kansas Housing Investor Tax Credits to help bring down the value, the sale value of, I think they're like 285 listed in Indian Hills. They want to bring them down and trying to like 240s to help kind of move. They have about 17 houses sitting, so trying to drive that down. And then we do have a new applicant for planning commission, and I'm thinking at the March meeting that city council, the mayor will go ahead and accept that application.
Does that get us back up to full
Yes,
staff?
yep,
Full-
because
full capacity?
they will take Mr. Scott's position. So yeah, I'll take us back to 7. Has been extremely busy with the new Casey's. They are moving right along. They call just about every day for some sort of inspection, so moving quick out there.
Good.
Yep. And I do, and everybody's asking, if they do plan to keep all 3 open, monitor sales to see how that goes, sales and performance, and then make an adjustment afterwards.
Good, that's good. All right. Anybody have
I
anything?
have a quick question. I had a property owner off the square neighbor Shipman Liquor Building. What
Yes.
is the he also called me again today and said he talked to the, I guess, previous owners, that now they think it's in the county's hands.
So it does have it does, according to a title search, have a legal owner. So it has been readdressed at building inspection level, and then just because of the legalities of all of it, has to go back up through city council. So we are, yeah, very aware that it is an issue, so hopefully over the next several months, we'll be working towards a solution, whatever that is. I don't know what that'll be, what that will look like, but yeah,
I
it is
told him,
being.
I told him he needed to probably address the council on that.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I told him I'd at least ask today or tonight,
But there is an owner.
There, according to the title, there is an owner.
Who's probably past due in taxes.
I have no comment on.
All right, with that, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
All right,
DeGrand,
Aye.
Cowman,